Little Defender, the shot that shook a nation. It started with a routine shopping trip. It ended in a hail of gunfire. 6-year-old Ella Carter had no idea that her life and the lives of those around her would be forever changed that fateful evening. What should have been a simple errand for a brand new 75-inch television became a moment of life or death, a flashpoint of terror, injustice, and desperate survival. Her mother, Danielle Carter, had left her buckled in the car outside the supermarket, promising to be back in a few minutes. But inside the store, things took a turn when Danielle, smiling with satisfaction at her purchase, was stopped at the exit. "Receipt, please?" She reached into her purse, checked her pockets, dug through the plastic bag. Nothing. "I just had it," she protested, growing frantic. She turned to the cashier, the same man who had rung her up moments before. He nodded in confirmation, swearing to security that Danielle had, in fact, paid for the television. But rules were rules, and the security guard refused to let her pass without the proof. Tensions escalated when Danielle, growing impatient, tried to leave anyway. The guard blocked her. Moments later, 2 police officers arrived, summoned to handle a suspected shoplifter. "Sir, check the cameras," she pleaded. But they didn't listen. Instead, they grabbed her arms. Danielle yelped as one officer shoved her to the ground, his knee pressing into her back. "I can't breathe!" she screamed. She thrashed beneath them, her cries morphing into strangled gasps. Her vision blurred, the fluorescent lights above her fading into black spots. Ella watched everything. From the car, the little girl's heart pounded in her tiny chest. Her mother's muffled screams clawed their way into her ears. The 2 big men had her pinned. She wasn't moving. She was dying. Fear turned to something else. Instinct. Ella knew her mother kept a gun. She'd seen it before, nestled inside the glove compartment, a heavy, cold thing that her mom always told her never to touch. But tonight, rules didn't matter. She unbuckled herself, fingers trembling, and reached for the gun. It was heavier than she expected, her small hands struggling to hold it steady. But she had no choice. The door flung open. The pavement felt hot against her sneakers. The gun shook in her grip as she pointed it at the officer crushing her mother beneath him. "Let her go." The officer barely spared her a glance. "Put that down, sweetheart. This isn't a game." Ella's hands tightened around the grip. Her voice didn't waver. "I said, let her go." A smirk, a chuckle, a shift in weight as the officer pressed down even harder, pinning Danielle into the ground. The gun went off, once, twice, then a third time. The officer's head snapped back, a fine red mist spraying into the night air. He crumpled instantly, his body hitting the pavement with a sickening thud. Ella stood there, her breath ragged, her arms locked in place as the gun slipped from her hands and clattered to the ground. Silence. The remaining officer, a woman, froze, her wide eyes bouncing between the fallen body of her partner and the child standing before her. Ella slowly raised her hands in surrender. Behind her, Danielle gasped for air, slowly coming back to life. Then, chaos. Backup arrived in droves. Sirens screamed through the night. Ella and her mother were cuffed and taken away, the flashing red and blue lights painting the streets in pulses of color. But the truth couldn't stay buried for long. CCTV footage surfaced. The world saw what Ella saw, a mother in distress, a child acting to save her. The missing receipt? It was later found, crumpled on the supermarket floor, kicked aside in the scuffle. When the case went to court, the judge didn't hesitate. Self-defense, he ruled. A 6-year-old cannot be expected to understand the difference between a criminal and an officer when her mother is crying out for her life. Danielle was freed, Ella was released, but the world was never the same. Because that night, a child had done what no one else would. She fought back, and she won. So sad a soul was lost. This is a gripping and emotionally charged story that raises deep ethical and societal questions. The intensity of the narrative highlights themes of justice, fear, and the consequences of power imbalances. Ella's actions, though born out of desperation and love, challenge conventional ideas about heroism and the cost of survival. Questions are, was there another way? Could this tragedy have been avoided if those in power had simply listened? It's a chilling reflection of real-world issues, and it forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality of systemic injustice. Should a child ever be put in such a position? Share your thoughts in the comment section.